Hey everybody, it's Benita here with Be Delighted Creations, coming to you with another easy DIY video. If you like this video, please be sure to hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be starting here with this wood frame door hanger that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. It says welcome and it's an unfinished wood. I found it in the spring section and everything right now in the spring section is 40% off. And so they have quite a variety of different unfinished wood designs that you can paint and put your own finished touch to it. I'm using the Waverly chalk paint in Ivory, and I'm just started going around painting it. Now this plaque has a beaded edging on it, which was kind of difficult to get my brush around and to make sure everything was covered. So I had to get a smaller brush and go around all those little beads. It took me longer to paint than I expected, so I did kind of speed up the video here so that you're not bored with all my painting. I just went ahead and painted in between the letters. Any area, I did not want any of the natural wood showing. And this paint dries pretty quick, and I found that I really didn't need to put more than one coat. It covered up good. And so I was going for a more of a farmhouse rustic look, and so of course I wasn't expecting it to be perfect because I was gonna end up kind of roughing it up anyways. So one coat of paint was all I needed. Now you don't have to use this paint. You can use or color. In fact, you could use any color you'd like. Spray paint would even probably be good. It would definitely be faster. I like the look the chalk paint gives, and so and it dries really quick too. By the time you're done on one end, the other end is already dried. So you could do as many coats as you feel that you need. And so I just went ahead and did all the edges in between those beads. If you need to get a smaller brush to do that, that's what I had to do. And I just wanted to make sure that it was all covered. There was nothing, there was no spots that weren't painted. And so just get into the edges with a small brush and get that paint in there. And this paint is really easy to work with. It doesn't really leave like any streaks or anything, and so that's what I like about this paint. You could also use acrylic paint, white, ivory, and I'll leave in the description the paints that I used, because I will be going over it with another color just to give it an aged look. And so I went ahead and got another paintbrush that was a little bit bigger so that I can get into all the small spots and just get in there, get it all covered. And of course, like I said, this took me longer than what I was hoping, but that's kind of how it goes. I wrap my brush with a wipey just so that the paint does not dry on it. Like I said, this chalk paint dries quick, so I didn't have a bowl with water or anything, so I just went ahead and grabbed a moist wipey and wrapped my brush in it so that the paint on it doesn't dry. So I went ahead and picked up the sign and just started going in between all those letters. The wood was kind of rough, and so It probably wouldn't have hurt if I would have sanded it a little bit before I started, but um, like I said, it's wood and it's unfinished, so um, you may need to give it a little bit of a sanding before you start painting it. It was a little bit rough on my brushes, and so I use some older brushes, so if they're ruined, it doesn't matter, I'll just throw them out. I buy them at Walmart in a big pack, so they're inexpensive, and so but they're pretty good brushes. I use them for all my projects. So you just want to get in there and um, get in between all the letters, all of the inside of the sign. I did not want any of the natural wood showing. I wanted it all. And eventually I ended up painting the back. I was going to leave the back, but I did end up painting it because I just wanted to have a full finished look. And so I got the sides on the inside and on the outside to so that it was everything was covered. And like I said, the paint dries pretty quick, so it's easy to move on to the next step. Make sure you cover your area. I'm a messy crafter, so I always have wipes on hand and extra paper to protect my work area so I don't get everything full of paint. And of course I wear an apron, so I don't want to get the paint on my clothes. And so once that is done, you could either let it sit to dry, or I used a blow dryer. This is really handy. It's a dryer. It's not a hair dryer, but it's for crafts. It blows hot, warm air, and I use that just to get any areas that hadn't dried yet. I wanted it to be dry before I went on to the next step, because then if not, that paint is going to smear and it's just going to make a mess. So I went around and just dried any areas that were still wet with my dryer. I'm going to be using a brown paint. This paint is just an acrylic paint. I believe it's an apple barrel from Walmart. I will leave the name of the paint in the description box. Once that's dry, of course, it's got like um, it's a matte chalky finish. And so I got just a small squirt of this brown paint. I put it in the bowl, mixed a little bit of that white or the ivory that I had, wiped off the excess on the paper, and then just started brushing that onto the frame, going all in one vertical direction, just adding little bits. And make sure you wipe off the excess, because then it'll be kind of hard to, if you have a lot on there, it's going to be hard to blend it out. So I went over the wood, the edging, and the words, the welcome words, just lightly, just to give it an aged look. And then of course you want to make sure that that's dry before you do anything else. Once you get it how you look, you don't have to use brown. You could use maybe a gray or whatever works for you, whatever colors you like. So I went ahead and used my blower again to dry, to make sure everything was dry. On the inside, and I did end up painting the back. I didn't like how it looked. And if you're going to be selling something like this, you kind of want, even though the back's not going to be showing, it just gives it a more professional finish. So I went with a piece of sandpaper. Doesn't matter how rough the sandpaper is. I don't know. It was just a piece of sandpaper I had lying there. just to rough it up a little bit, go over those edges, especially on the beads where the paint really grabbed onto those beads. And so I had to go over them just to kind of give it a more aged look. And I did not put any top coat or anything. I just left it as is. If you want to put a varnish over it to protect it from water or from the weather, uh, it's definitely up to you. You can do that, but I did want it to have that matte finished look, rustic farmhouse look. And so I went in between any areas that just needed to be sanded and roughed up. I also sanded the back. Of course, some of that white paint or that ivory paint had seeped through, and so I went ahead and sanded it, and of course I painted it because um, I just wanted it to have, you could see some of the white spots that had kind of dripped to the other side, and so I just went ahead and added a coat of the white paint to the back just so that it was finished on both sides. And so I used my big brush and just quickly went over it, and then make sure it's dry. This took the longest to paint. I wasn't expecting it to paint. I probably could have painted it first, but I wanted you to see how I did it. And I like to make my videos not so long, a little bit shorter. And so I did speed up the process a little bit of the painting just so that you get the idea of how I painted it and what I used. And so once you've got it all painted, you could just leave it to let it set so that it dries. Or, well, for the sake of this video, I went ahead and used my blower to make sure that it was dry before I went on to the next step. And so just went ahead and covered everything with the paint. The Waverly Chalk paint, I usually find mine at Walmart. I don't know if there's any other stores that sell it. I haven't seen it like at Hobby Lobby, but you could definitely find it at Walmart in the craft section. And the brown paint, I believe, is also from Walmart. And so I went ahead and covered up my brushes with some wipes so that they don't, I didn't have any water nearby so that the paint doesn't dry on them. And then I'll just wash them out later. And I just went ahead and got it all dry. I didn't want to turn it over and then it sticks to your paper or your workspace and then the paint peels off. So make sure it's dry before you go on to the next step. And this paint does dry pretty quick, so it didn't take very long to dry. And I think it came out really nice. You could even just use it like this, but we're going to dress it up a little bit more. When I saw it, when I saw this sign, I thought it was just perfect for a farmhouse look with just some simple greenery, maybe even a bow, and it's perfect for any time of the year. You can keep this up from spring all the way through fall, and it's just perfect. And so once it's all dry, I had to clean my hands because of course they were just full of paint. And I took away the paper because I didn't want the florals I was going to be using, I didn't want to get paint on those, but it's dry. And what I used were some lamb's ears from Hobby Lobby, and I used 2 stems lamb's ears. And I believe Walmart also sells the lamb's ears, but I got these at Hobby Lobby, and I cut down the stems. Cut down the stems as far as you need to. I had to cut them down some more. They were a little too long. It's always to cut them longer than it is really short, because then you can't add it on. And I wanted to go over the bottom of the frame, and so just arrange them how you're going to want them, and of course, cut off any excess that you're not going to need. And so and then I had another green stem with some purple flowers. I believe I bought these at Hobby Lobby. I believe I bought them last year on clearance, and so I don't know whether they still have this style, but you could definitely find something similar, or just use whatever you like. If you want to use more florals, flowers, hydrangeas, whatever works. I definitely wanted to make sure I wasn't covering up the welcome words. I wanted that to show. And so and then I wanted just a green natural very natural look. I went ahead and used some floral wire and tied the stems together. I'm not a big fan of using floral wire. I prefer zip ties, but for this, just to kind of keep some of those stems in place, I went ahead and used a piece of floral wire. And then I started incorporating more of those sprigs with the purple flowers. I don't even know what, I'm not sure what they're called. It looks like maybe lavender or something. And then of course fluff them up so that it gives it some dimension. Move your leaves around. You could even glue, I think I even glued some of the smaller stems in, just so that if you can't get them tied in, you can add a little bit of glue so that they stay in place. And then I went ahead and secured them with a zip tie. I love using zip ties. Zip ties are my friends. I use them in a lot of my projects to keep things together. Make sure you cut that end off as far close to the edge as possible, and it can be sharp, so I usually try to move it out of the way where you know you don't want to cut yourself with that sharp edge of that zip tie. Again, I used another piece of wire just to kind of hold everything together. But I do not like to rely on wire. I feel that sometimes it's not strong enough. It's not going to hold things in place. And so I definitely prefer to use zip ties. The wire's thinner and it's easier to hide sometimes, but you can hide zip ties too. Now I went to get some other zip ties. I have a package of these colored zip ties, and I had some green ones in there, but they were not working. They were like defected. I like them because they're thin, they're easy to hide, but I tried several of them, and when I would pull it, it would just break. And so I was, I think I went through either 3 or 4 of those green zip ties, and they just kept breaking. So I ended up getting some other ones. I wanted to be able to hide it in the greenery so that you don't see it. And these zip ties just kept breaking. And so I went back to where I have all my zip ties, my zip tie department, I guess you can say. And I had some other green ones that were a little bit bigger. And so I just went ahead and used those. And I usually find my zip ties, you can find them at Walmart, Amazon, or Home Depot. I believe those are from Home Depot. And I know at Christmas time they have like red ones and green ones. And I think I had picked up a package of those. And so just be sure to move those ends out of the way where they're not going to scratch or poke somebody. And then I used a clear zip tie to secure that whole bundle of flowers to the frame. Um, and I put one in the middle, and then I went ahead and zip tied the largest stem on the sides because I didn't want that to come loose or be flopping around. And so I went ahead and used a zip tie on each side. A clear one, it was way at the bottom so you wouldn't be able to see it. And then I put another one on the other side. And so that those flowers aren't going to go anywhere. And it gives you that that stability to be able to move those flowers around, fluff them up, give them some dimension, make them look like, it's not just a bunch of flowers just stuck on there. And I ended up getting another stem just to add on to the other side because I felt like it needed one more. And so add as many flowers as you want. Now, if you don't want to, I did make a bow for this design. And I was debating whether I wanted to put a bow or not. And so if you don't want to add a bow, you can add flowers in the middle. More than likely, you'll probably have to glue them so that your zip ties aren't showing. But I went ahead and just got some natural plaid ribbon and made a bow using, I just made a bow by hand. I do have a video on how to make really simple bows by hand. If you want to, I can link that video. I just made 3 loops on each side and tied it off with a pipe cleaner. I measured it to see how big I wanted it in that middle so that it covered any of the zip ties or the wire that I used. I used a natural color pipe cleaner and fluff up your bow, fluff up your edges. And then I got another piece of my ribbon, and I pulled the wire out because I do use you have to use wired ribbon for your bows, if not they're not going to stay. And so I went ahead and pulled the wire out so that it was flexible and flimsy, and I went ahead and tied it in a knot, and that knot is going to go in the middle of my bow just to kind of give it some a more finished look. I went ahead and clipped off those ends and glued it to the back of the bow. You could even tie it, but I didn't want it to look really bulky, so I went ahead and glued those edges to the back of the bow, and so that the knot is just showing in the front. And so just go ahead and add that, or you can add a flower in the middle, whatever you like, and that's going to cover up that pipe cleaner that I used to tie that bow. And then you want to dovetail your edges. I use a good pair of scissors for my ribbon. A lot of my ribbons are really thick and have really strong wires, and so I use a specific pair of scissors just for my ribbon. Then I went ahead and used the pipe cleaner and I just tied it off to the base of that frame. Fluff up your bow, fluff up your greenery, and you guys have an easy door hanger that you can keep on your door anytime of the year. You can keep it up from spring into a fall, and it's just really simple. You could even put it on the inside of your house. And there you guys have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye.